Hi everybody, I'm Octavia, UX researcher for Ferpection, a company specialized in user research, and today we're going to talk about UX design in Japan. So when we talk about UX design in a country, we're talking about localization. So localization is adapting an interface to a local culture. So it's not only translating the language, but it's also adapting to the culture, to the behavior and the mentalities of its population. So today we're going to talk about that in Japan. We can see that each country has its own culture, and we can analyze through this Dutch researcher through 6 different categories. Here it's the differences between France and Japan. So the first category is the power distance, and we can see that it's lower for Japan compared to France. Also, we can see that Japan has a collectivism culture, whereas French has more individualist culture. Third category is feminine versus masculine approach. So we can see here that Japan culture has a really masculine approach, which means they really use competition in their culture. Uncertainty avoidance, it's almost similar for France and Japan. Fifth category, in Japan, they do more long-term actions in the present compared to France. And last category, France and Japan are almost the same in restraining versus indulgence. We can also notice that each country has its own way of communicating, and France and Japan, it's almost completely opposite. So France is more confrontational and more emotionally expressive, whereas in Japan, they try to be less expressive when it's about emotion, and they avoid confrontation. So today we're going to see that how it is represented in UX design. So first about the complexity of the design culture in Japan, and a second part about the emotional engagement. First part, complexity of the design culture. About the design culture, we can see that in Japan, it's very different when we talk about Japanese non-digital design and when we talk about Japanese digital design. When I say non-digital design, I'm talking about interior design, industrial object. So it's most of them are really simple, really sophisticated, and really minimalist style. We can also think about the Japanese Zen garden, which are very simple, very pure. But when we think about digital design in Japan, it's the opposite. It's really overwhelmed. It's very complex. It can be kind of aggressive for us. There are a lot of strong color, not so much white space, a lot of text, image, and a high quantity of information displayed. So we can see that in this context, Japan has a design culture very complex, very contradictory. So there is the new and the old at the same time, the innovative and the traditional also. When we look at the history of the digital in Japan, we can see that most Japanese use flip phones until 2014, before using smartphone. 2014, it's when iPhone 6 was released. So before the iPhone 6 in Japan, not so many Japanese used iPhones. No, they didn't use smartphones so much. They were used to the flip phones and they liked it and they used it a lot. So they are very used to that kind of small screen with a lot of information condensed in one screen, one small area. So they use it until 2014. Also, we can see here on the graphic that compares 7 countries that Japan is the country that use the most the smartphone, that navigate the most on their phone compared to the desktop. So they are really used to use very small screen to navigate in their daily life. When we look at the Japanese behavior, we can see that Japanese, they avoid taking risk. And this is for most of the population, but especially for the salaryman. So salaryman is the businessman, because they like to be accepted in the group. They don't like to be different. And as we saw earlier, Japan has more collectivist society. So one thing they want to avoid is to be different from the group. So they don't like to take a risk to be different. They prefer to stay in the group and to do like everyone else. How this is represented in UX design is the Japanese users prefer to be assured rather than challenged. So they prefer to be guided rather than taking risks or doing their own research, especially when they are online, shopping online. They want to have a lot of information. They want to know everything. So they want to read about the product description. They want to read about the delivery information. And the more information there are, the better it is for a Japanese. And about their expectation, we can see here that Japanese users are known as zappers, like the Italian, because they spend about 36 seconds per page on average, compared to the American, for example, they spend about 40 seconds per page. That means that the Japanese don't stay very long on the screen, so the information has to be visible when they arrive on a page, because they don't stay very long. However, they scroll much more than the other countries, more than 20% compared to the 6 other countries. So for them, it's not a problem to scroll as long as the information is here. Also, it's not a problem for them to navigate on several pages. So they like to do a deeper research, but they don't stay very long on one screen. So as we said, they want to have a lot of information. So how is it represented on a website? It's represented more or less like this image. It's a very, for us, maybe heavy page with a lot of text, a lot of information. But this is what they are looking for when they go on a website. Why is it like that? Because all users are targeted with one interface. There are not a separate interface per target. So there are no differentiation based on user needs. It has to have the information for all of them. And in Japan, simplicity means unreliable. So white space means there is a lack of information somewhere. So they prefer to have no white space and to have a lot of text, a lot of information, rather than very simple interface like we used to see in Western countries. Here is an example with Starbucks. So Starbucks in Japan has more text blocks, a lot of description, whereas in the American version, it's more about color, it's more about feeling, it's more about the brand sensation. So it's in the Western country, brands prefer to play with the emotion, the atmosphere, give a sensation. Whereas in Japan, they prefer to give very concrete information, detailed and text. We can see that there's a long information has long pages also as a consequence. The length of a page can be more than twice as long as a Western website because there are more information. So here is an example with Disneyland French website and the Japanese website. And we can see that in the French website, they focus more on the main services, whereas in Japan, they are, of course, the main services, but also more information, such as more menus, more campaigns, more subjects. And also the services are different between Japan and Western countries. So here is an example with the food search services. So the most common one in the United States, it's Yelp that helps you to find restaurants. And the equivalent in Japan is Tabelog. And we can see that the highlighted services for Yelp, it's based on individual preferences or wants. So based on their history, the website will suggest a restaurant where the user went before, or maybe that might like because he went to a similar restaurant. Whereas in Japan, the service it's more common because it's more a collectivist society. So it will be more the recommendation based on popularity of the restaurants. About the structure. In Japan, there are 3 alphabets: hiragana, which is this one, a little bit simpler character; katakana, which is this one, with for imported word or name; and the kanji, which is like that, imported from China. So more complex one. And they mix these 3 alphabets to write in Japan. So on an interface, the text should be large enough to be readable because because with that alphabet there are no capital letter, no space, no italics, and very few typography. So the text should be really large to be readable for the Japanese user. But these characters allow Japanese to read very fast and to integrate all the information very quickly, because it's not like us, we have each letter that create a word, so we can read each letter to read the whole word and each word to read the whole sentence. In Japan, they can just look at the character and understand what is it about. So they read really fast, and that's also why they don't spend so much time on a page, because they can just look at the text block and they can see what is it about. Also, in Japan, they are used to read vertically. So in books and also in the street, they read vertically. Sometimes they read also horizontally because it's easier, for example, on an interface, but they are used to that structure, which means vertical reading equals vertical architecture information. Most of the Japanese interface are structured in columns because they are used to that reading sense. But how in a Western country, it's more a division by in horizontally. Here is another example with Yahoo. So in the Yahoo United States, we can see that the structure is divided in line. Compared than Japan, it's divided in column. Also, the alphabet, it's a way for a brand to communicate or to give the image they want. If they use more kanji, so the more complex character, it means it's more for adults. But they can also use hiragana and katakana, so the 2 first alphabet, to communicate to children. So here we can see the 2 differences. And in Japan, Japanese used to learn how to read until about 15 years old, because there are so many alphabet and it's so complex that it takes a lot of time to read correctly the whole Japanese languages. So this, we can see that a brand can play on the character to know how they want to communicate. But they can also do it on packaging. So here we can see that packaging for children use more hiragana or katakana, whereas the packaging for adults, even for cookie, they prefer to use the kanji. So it can give a kind of tone to a brand on an interface, but also on the packaging. And navigation. So navigation also, it's very interesting in Japan, because as we saw, the Japanese prefer to be guided. They prefer to have all the information on the screen. So they have the category very visible from the beginning. Here we have an example with Rakuten. So Rakuten in France have a burger menu. So they have to click on the burger menu here to see the different categories displayed on the website. But on the Japanese version, they have 2 menus, and they have 2 menus already visible. They don't have to click it to see the categories. So there is one on the top of the screen at the horizontal and another on the side. This helps the Japanese user to be guided through the site. Also, the Japanese like the slideshow. So the slideshow on mobile are very important in China and Japan compared to the rest of the world, more than 87%. They like to click on the image on the slideshow, and this is very instinctive for them. And we saw that in one of our study, we compared the same homepage, the same website, in the United States, the United Kingdom, in China and Japan, and there were a slideshow. And we noticed that in the United States and in the UK, they didn't know that it was a slideshow because they didn't have they didn't swipe to see if there was different images. However, in Japan and in China, they swipe directly to see the different images. So that was really instinctive because they are really used to slideshow. Here is an example of a slideshow on the McDonald's website. So we see clearly that in the United States, there are no slideshow because they don't use that kind of navigation. But in Japan, they are a big slideshow at the top of the screen to see and to communicate on different subjects. About the second part, emotional engagement. The color. The use of the color is very different in Japan, especially for the red color. So red color in Western country can be seen as aggressive, can be seen as an error. But in Japan, the red color is more positive. It's very catchy for the eyes, and it's good to use it very often. And it's often used for the CTA color, because users can see it directly and they want them to click. Here is an example with Rakuten in Japan, United States, and France. We can see that in the Japanese website, it's used for advertisement, it's used a lot. We can see a lot of red. In the United States, it's used for promotion, for discount, and in French version, there are almost no red. So a brand can use the red a lot in Japan because it's very common and they're really used to that and used to very strong color. Here is an example with Kentucky fast food. So even if the brand itself has the color red and it's its own color, we can see that on the French version, they don't use it that much. So we can see a bit of red, but compared to the Japanese website, they use it a lot. Almost the whole website is red, and this is very normal. And this is not aggressive for Japanese. So a brand shouldn't be afraid to use the red color. And about the brand communication. In Japan, the culture has a lot of mascot, a lot of characters. We have these images through mangas and through anime also, but it's true that in Japan, mascot and characters are very common. And it's not only for children, it's really for everyone, also for adults. So a brand should use manga characters or a mascot to connect and to create a really strong relation with their users. Also, the brand can play with the concept of the kawaii. So the kawaii, it's the cuteness, the innocence, the friendliness that we know about Japan. And a brand can use the kawaii and the mascot to communicate because it's very common and it creates a really strong relationship with the brand. It's so important, the mascot and the character, that it's not only online, but it's also offline. We can see here that they use online. This is Line. Line is kind of a WhatsApp or a message box where we can chat with someone else. And it's very common in Japan to use stickers. So stickers, it's kind of our emojis. And they use character stickers on their message, like an emoji. But these stickers has also their own relationship, their own story outside of the online world. they have also a physical shop with where people can buy their product about this character. So that means that this character that was a sticker before are so important that and so commonly used in Japan that now they have their own shop. So this is to show how common is it for adults also, because it's not a shop for children, it's really for everyone to use stickers. And we also did one study for a luxury brand, and during an interview, the participants say that she would be happy to have stickers as a gift when she buy on a luxury brand website, because it will help her to be more loyal to the brand. So even for a luxury brand website, Japanese wants to have stickers as a reward or as a gift when they shop on their website. So it's a really common in the Japanese culture to have stickers even for luxury and even for adults. And to finish, a fun fact about emojis. So we can see that Japanese express feelings with their eyes much more than Americans that express more with their mouth. So that's why in Japan, even before the corona situation and the COVID, they use masks a lot before. And so the mouth was not so visible, and they express their feelings more with the eye. That's why emojis are more based on the eyes in Japan. Whereas in a Western country, we wear more sunglasses and we cannot see our eyes all the time. So the emotion is more through the mouth. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation about UX in Japan. If you have any comments, any questions, feel free to send us an email.